Pop, what's going on, man?
Son, just another regular day
Another
in
day
the
in the
NFL.
office. Another day in the office. We were chopping it up, trying to figure out after the Eagles game and some conflicting plans, and trying to figure out, okay, what do we want to do? And we said, look, with these next few days, they call it Black Monday, they call it Stormy Monday, but Tuesday's just as bad apparently around here. Oh, it's for the Godfather if he's listening.
In the DMV.
And so let's hold off. There's not anything we're going to talk about in a Josh Johnson led victory against the Philadelphia Eagles is really not of all that much value. No disrespect to all the hardworking podcasters out there that did it, but we said let's hold off. Let's see what happens. The presser was just. I told Morgan it was like the press conference equivalent of an overcooked piece of spaghetti on a wet rag. Like it was just so uninspiring and pathetic.
No,
We'll get into
totally.
that later.
It was like taking some melatonin
Oh
before
my
bed.
god. You know what's messed up is it made me mad. It like got me hyped up, but we'll get into that.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, end up since we last spoke, the Commanders are 5-12. Cliff Kingsbury has mutually agreed to part ways. Depending on who you ask, Adam Schefter said he stepped away from the job. Uh, Ian Rappaport reported that uh, he'd been let go. I think either side is going to say that they were the one to do it. You can't fire me. I quit. I quit. Well, then you're fired. Who knows what happened there? We'll get into that. Joe Whitt Jr., who, if in case you didn't know, was still the defensive coordinator. He'd been Dan Quinn gave him a little slap on the wrist earlier in the season, but was still the defensive coordinator. He'd been fired, and Bobby Johnson. This is the one that really kind of surprised me. Bobby Johnson was also fired, the offensive line coach, which, given the offensive line's been maybe the only unit on the entire team you could say played up to their expectations. So maybe it was just like a tied to Cliff situation there. Pop had some insight on that, but how do you react to all of this, Pop?
There's a lot to unpack. I mean, it starts with, we didn't really react to the Eagles game, nor do we really need to, but
No.
it kind of starts with that. I mean, that was the most. And I'm sure I've had other moments where I've been completely uninspired watching a late season meaningless game, but it was such a weird feeling to kind of almost, pretty much want them to lose that game. And then,
Yeah.
you can't blame them for trying to win it. I don't know. There's a lot of people, I guess there's a lot of air that needs to be filled going on and on about fifth pick versus seventh pick. I don't know. It doesn't
Ain't gonna be
really,
much air to fill tomorrow.
yeah, it doesn't
Ain't gonna
really
be air
get
to
me
fill
too
tomorrow.
fired up. Can't difference between 4-13 and 5-12? Who cares? We did end up with the number 7 pick, which we'll talk a lot more about in the future. But as far as the whole Cliff thing goes, I guess it's just that whole thing where there's smoke, there's fire, and he's, especially over the last few weeks, I listened to his pressers, and there's definitely been signs of just not really being too content with what was going on. He made some comments about, well, being forced to call the offense differently.
And
And
I thought I saw it even in the plays. Like there were a few goal line sequences where he just handed the ball off 4 times in a row, and it almost felt him being like, I genuinely felt watching that was Cliff being like, "Here, damn it, you want it? We're gonna run the ball up the gut 4 times," and then of course we scored every time because that's what happens when you run the ball 4 times on the 1 yard line. But it did feel like it was like it felt like it was
yeah,
being done in spite. Um,
yeah, he's got, I
Sorry to
mean,
cut you off.
no, it's good. I mean, credit to him. He's got an offensive system that he runs and he's committed to it and he believes in it. And, they ask him about why he's in shotgun so much. And he said he doesn't really buy into the whole, under center versus shotgun conversation. I've heard Jay Gruden talking about it, and he said, "Look, there's a lot more options under center. for the quarterback than there is, when you go in shotgun, it kind of limits you. So it depends on the coach, I guess. I mean, I think what bothers me about it, and I'm not passionately saying it was the wrong move. What bothers me about it is these are the same coaches that you picked 2 years ago. You picked UAP, you Dan Quinn, whatever combination of the two of you picked, and especially Kliff Kingsbury. Like you could argue Joe Whitt, they gave him a shot. It was his first shot at it, didn't work out. Okay, but to me, hearing things like, well, Dan Quinn wants to go in a different direction with the offense, the reason you hire a Dan Quinn is he's an experienced coach. He knows what he wants. He's not learning it as he goes along. And, in one degree, I give them credit for making a correction at this point if they felt like it needed to be made. And I think the reasons behind the correction being made, I don't really have a major problem with, in the sense that I think if you look at it truthfully with Kliff, it wasn't a very balanced offense. It was a lot of quarterback runs, which, if you really think about it, a lot of that comes out of scramble. So, even though the running statistics look good, how many of those runs are not even, they're called pass plays?
I was screaming about that last year,
Right.
and I was saying it's a good thing because he's not even calling design. You don't see him call a ton of design quarterback runs, and the ones that are called, I think, from what I've seen, I don't know, but from what I've seen, the ones that are called, it feels like Jaden actually checks into a draw sometimes. And when he sees a certain thing in the defense, a certain alignment, he'll check into one. I've seen that, but he doesn't call a lot of design quarterback runs. It was mostly Jaden scrambling last year. Like if you really watch the games, and that's
Right.
what
But
used to drive me crazy when
that
people
could
would
be
say
an
he's a running
argument,
quarterback.
but that even hurts the running statistics even more
I
because
agree.
we're 25th in the league in rushing the ball with running backs. Okay. And ultimately, let's just, you're when you put a situation like that, especially a young quarterback in a situation back or backup quarterbacks in a situation like that, you put them under so much pressure and so much duress, especially when your receiving core is decimated. So I don't, the philosophical reasons for wanting to make a change there, whether it was Kliff that just didn't want to adapt or they just knew that it wasn't something he wanted to do. We were all saying it. He won't do it. He won't change. And when he did change, he was very unhappy, based on his own words, reading his own words to change. So you could say that, but you can also look at what they did last year offensively with Jaden, which was an historically good rookie season. And you scratch your head a little bit too there too and go, okay, you can complain about the offense, but was it tailored to Jaden's still skill set? And how is Jaden going to respond to something different? And he was obviously,
Well,
I mean, that's the other dynamic in this thing. He wanted Kliff to stay. That's
yeah.
clear,
So
right?
two things about that, and obviously, just real quick, there's nothing to talk about when it comes to the Joe Witt Jr. thing being fired. Um,
Not really.
I think it was the more logical hire of the two, frankly. At the time, people were loving him, but clearly just can't coach. So wasn't a good fit here. Peace. But the two things about the Kliff thing is like, one, what is this impact on Jaden? How does Jaden react? Because everybody around here wants to act like Jaden Daniels walks on water and never has a negative emotion and is always happy and is just a perfect leader and the perfect thing. This is his first real obstacle, like NFL, like, oh boy, this is a business moment. How will he respond to that? We don't know. We can infer based on what we think, and the other part of it is you don't know how much of Jaden's success was tied to Kliff for sure. You have no answer to that. I would point to what year 2 and year 3 for Kyler Murray looked like under Kliff Kingsbury. I would point to the way the Cardinals regressed after multiple years of Kliff's offense and say there's a pretty strong data point out to show that Kliff's offense is just not sustainable. I thought we went off the cliff, left hand up, no pun intended, when we hit that 3-game skid in the middle of last year. I thought we went off that cliff. I said that the league caught up to
Yeah.
us. We're sliding. And I think what I said on the phone to the Boston Insider earlier, I was talking to him about it on the way home. I think this to me, and this is cope, homerism, whatever you want to call it, is another feather in Jaden's cap because I think more was happening. And I think I think the guys on the radio about it this morning knew it was coming before it happened because you could hear. I heard B Mitch specifically talking about Kliff in a way I never really heard him talk about him before the news broke. Um, I think more was happening in spite of Kliff than because of Kliff last year, and based off of what I saw happen this year. And everybody wants to say, "Oh, the offense moved the ball with Mariota." We won 5 games. Like the super simplified, zoomed out version of all of this, and brings up another really interesting discussion. Which ultimately, it's very clear Dan Quinn's not going to get fired at this point unless something really changes. If he's the one making these decisions, it's clear that AP is going to stick by him for another year, at least. But the larger question is at 5-12, if you really just want to zoom out, a lot of people should lose their jobs at 5-12, and you wonder if it's not going to be the head coach. I mean, that's why I alluded to it in earlier pods, and I've said it off mic talking to you, Pop. I'm not sure. I've said I'm not sure even Kliff should be safe because at 5-12, how can you say one side of the ball was good? You don't get to 5-12 if one side of the ball is above league average. You don't.
I mean, I don't know. You go by the eye test, and we all watched the games. It definitely didn't feel like the offense was the bigger issue. They were able to be pretty effective and put up points. Not on every occasion. There were some duds. There were some definite dud games, but they did, have some good ones. With a lot of backups in the game. So, I mean, I wasn't like one of those people that were calling for Kliff's head. I would have probably been just fine had he come back. But I think this is the evolution of what happened. I think the quarterback kept getting hurt. I think that there were some, the play where he hurt his elbow. They were basically saying, the mandate was keep him in the game, but we're not going to call any runs. And that was an RPO play, and he ends up getting hurt. So it's like Kliff kind of went a little rogue there. The situation in Minnesota where you've got the ball inside the goal line, you're running trick plays, you got a chance to tie the game and really change the momentum. We all know what happened there. So I think that what happened was, and it's all speculation. I think Dan and AP talk every week. And I think AP's influence, he's a very understated guy in these press conferences. He laughs. He doesn't say a whole lot. He seems like the nicest guy in the world. I don't think we saw it during the Terry negotiations. I don't think that's necessarily his personality when it
I think
comes
he's
to
a
running the
savage.
team. And
Yeah,
so, and I like AP. I think
me too.
AP is a professional GM. I don't think he's mistake free. I think he's learning as he goes, but I think he's got the right work ethic and the right makeup where I think he's going to do more good. And I think he's probably one of the bigger reasons for hope. And he's the reasons that people shouldn't be saying things like, it's the Snyder era Redskins. It's not. Like, I get it. It feels like that because of, you know, the current circumstances. But I think they started to try to impose as well. Dan Quinn went to Kliff and said, I want to run the ball more. And you could see in terms of how Kliff was responding in his presser. And I think it's very possible that they sat down today and Dan said, look, I want you to be here, man, but I need to know you're going to make these changes. You're going to make these adjustments. And Kliff went, nope. I
Yeah,
don't want to do
too
that.
many
I don't think that's the
opportunities
yeah. I
for
don't
him
think
to do
that's the
his
right.
thing elsewhere.
I don't think it's the right way.
And I want
And
to
maybe
remind
Dan knew.
everybody,
Maybe Dan provoked that response. And I think remember just one thing real quick: the reports that came out, which a lot of people dismissed, right? Diana
including me.
Rossini, and I've always felt she's been pretty well connected, especially with this team because she used to be a reporter for this team. She said it was a rift between AP and Kliff, not between Dan and Kliff, AP and Kliff. Now, of course, you threw it at me. You go like, "What in the presser?" AP said he's not involved in it. Of course, he's going to say that. He's not going to
So
undercut. He's not going
I
to
came up with
undercut
an
his head
interesting angle
coach.
on that.
He's not going to undercut his head coach in public, right?
Can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
I came up with an interesting angle on that particular point. I think how that reads at first is when we fire Cliff Kingsbury tomorrow, Dan Quinn made the decision. I think if you remember the reports when we hired Cliff, he was signed, sealed, and delivered to the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yep.
And Dan Quinn changed his mind to have him come here. And I think in Adam Peters's and maybe I'm sitting over here playing 5D chess and these guys are playing checkers. It could be. But I think in Adam Peters' savvy little way, that was his way of saying the Cliff thing's on cue, not me. I think that was his way of saying,
I think they were
you
both.
wanted to get Cliff. I let him do his thing. I let him build this staff. Now I'm taking over and helping with the next crew. Because,
Maybe. I think they were both pretty excited about Cliff. I think they were
yeah,
very excited about him after last season. I think that was like a big name hire, and they got fell into that trap a little bit. That's a thing. Like AP, if you're
and
coming from San Francisco and you want to run a West Coast offense and you want to run something closer to what Kyle Shanahan, we're both huge Kyle Shanahan fans. We're both big fans of that offense. Do it. Like do it. But do it from the beginning. You've in a way. Now I'm not all gloom and doom and saying they can't bounce back next season. Look, we see year one coaches do it all the time. Year one coordinators. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out in terms of who gets the job. I'm going to leave that scouting report to Dominic because I have no clue.
yeah,
But yeah, and I think I would only add this other nugget. I mean, in terms of Bobby Johnson, what I heard and what I read was the reporting was that he is a much better fit for what Cliff wants to do in terms of his blocking schemes than what you would typically get in a West Coast style offense in terms of zone read and the other blocking schemes. And maybe, maybe he was more tied with Cliff, in this whole
yeah,
thing than that, because you're right. It was mystifying, from our perspective. It looked like the offensive line played really well this year for the most
yeah,
part. And then, I think the Jaden Daniels thing, just real quick, everybody wants to make the Jaden Daniels RG3 comparison. This is a pure example of that's not the case because the adults are making the decisions, and they know. I'm sure they know that Jaden liked Cliff, but they just felt like he's not the best answer for what we need to do to protect you and develop you and give you a long-term career in this league. And
yeah,
I don't know that it's fair to make Cliff a scapegoat and Jaden get hurt, but the reality is he's been hurt and missed games with 4 different injuries over 2 years in that offense.
yeah. Um, I think it's going to be interesting. I've been a proponent of wanting to get Jaden in a West Coast style offense. I thought Cliff was not going to be here next year because he was either going to get a head coaching job, which, by the way, is still
7 openings.
decently likely. I think he's probably in the top 7 guys, maybe not with Harbaugh. now, and we'll
You don't think
discuss that
this
in a
hurts
second
him
here.
getting let go? I mean, I guess he could spin it that it was his choice.
Mutually agreed to part ways is the official thing there. And I wonder if Kliff didn't feel like, wouldn't you, if you're sitting down with your boss and your boss is going, hey man, I need you to make XYZ changes. And you know you can make those changes, but it's not what you want to do. And you know you can at least get the same job you have right now, if not a promotion at four or five other companies. You're probably going to say to your boss, hey man, no, sorry, don't want to do that. I'm going to go do something else. But good talk, appreciate it. Let's go out here with our heads held high. I don't think he, if the story we're being told is true, which I'm shaky on in the first place, I don't think he just walks out without having something else, at least having a good shot at something else. And I ultimately think what happened with Jaden last year is what's going to motivate more than, I think it's easier for a lot of people to look at this year and say, well, Jaden was hurt all year, and then they had to fire the offensive coordinator because, the head coach's head was on the block. I
Well,
think people can make that assumption.
two things can be true at once, and this is the nuance of things that you only get on the Dom and Pop show because a lot of people just want to scream about their point. I'm half joking there, but a lot want to scream about their point and want to lock in. Like, how could we possibly fire Kliff, right? Like, he's a great offensive coordinator. Look at what he was able to do with the team. And then the other argument is the other way, right? But the way I look at this is that two things are going to be true at once. Just because Kliff was a great fit for Jaden's rookie year coming out of college and a great match to his skill set. And I do believe part of the reason that that offense was so effective and all of that was that all those things were true.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean that he's the best fit for sustained success and the long term health of our quarterback. And I think
Yeah.
those two things can be true at the same time. And I would say, as frustrated as I am by this situation, and it's a bit of a clown show, if we're being honest, I'm happy that they made this decision now versus letting it drag on and kind of going into next year going, yeah, but the offense has been pretty effective. Jaden really likes Kliff. Maybe
Oh, it
this
would
was
have
just,
been so
maybe it was
easy to
just,
keep Cliff.
yeah, it
This
would
was
have been
the
very
hard
easy to
decision to
keep
make.
Kliff.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is
So
the
in that
this is the hard
respect, I give
decision
them
to make.
credit.
Sure. I was that's exactly what I was just about to say is like I think this shows a level of aggression that I respect. This could make us look silly. It could. There's of all the moves that we could make right now, this is the one that, all of a sudden he goes down and takes over Tennessee and Cam Ward's slinging the ball all over the yard and we start a little slow. It could make us look a little silly.
I think he can
But
coach. I think Kliff can
um
coach. I
I just
do.
want to remind everybody that he was about to take a job with the Las Vegas Raiders. And we gave him the job here. And of course, we were nobody at the time, too. And we still, I mean, we're coming off a 5-12 season. But prior to that, he was like quarterbacks or like pass game coordinator at USC. And prior to that, he took a one-way ticket to Thailand after becoming the punchline after what he did in Arizona and the way things fell apart there, which, by the way, he got his quarterback's ACL torn there, too. So I don't want to put it all on him, and it's not all on him, and that's not fair. But at the same point, the guy is not. Dan Quinn is much more respected in the NFL than Kliff, in my opinion. And that's a guy that I thought Quinn should have been fired. But he left Atlanta. He had an aging quarterback, went to Dallas, coached ball, got that defense cooking, came here, built something that the players, despite a 5-12 season, the media can't wait to put somebody's head on a stick. They're not just saying the players believe in Dan Quinn for fun. That's the truth. The players believe in the guy. I don't know that
It's
I do, but the players do, and that's worth that's worth something. And but anyways, this whole thing's really weird, and I think, like you
it
said,
is weird.
it looks like a little bit of a mess. Um, Part of me would have rather they fired Kliff yesterday morning before the presser, and then they could field questions about it. Like that weirds me out too, um, because the whole presser just felt like a wet blanket. Like it just was
That's a good
really,
description. It was
yeah, it
uninspired was my
was
biggest problem.
awful.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's not that I want them to get on there. I get it. They're being professional, they're being measured, they're being calm. I'm sure the conversations behind closed doors are much more fire. But I don't know, man. It just like had this whole vibe to it of like, oh well, that sucked. We promised to never let it happen again. We
and why are we
acknowledge that it was
supposed to trust
bad,
that? Yeah,
and I mean, I think there were some things subtly said that I've seen. They didn't give Cliff a ringing endorsement, which was prophetic.
writing on the wall,
Yeah, they did
probably.
talk about getting younger and faster. I like that. They did
Yeah,
talk about the need to find an edge rusher. I like that.
it's been 18 months we've been
They
talking about that.
did pull out the injury excuse, which
How could they not?
I don't have a biggest problem with because I do think it was a major factor in the way this season went. And ultimately, like, yes, Jaden Daniels is our franchise quarterback, and Grant Paulson said it today. I'm still writing down in pen that he's our franchise quarterback and he's a potential superstar. Like, I'm not questioning that, right?
Yeah,
Which I thought was good. I thought that summed it up pretty well. Having said that, you know, Jaden's career at some point is going to come and go, whether it's 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, whatever. You're trying to build something for the long haul and do it in a structure and in a way that's right. And, ultimately he's going to need to adjust. I have all the faith in the world that Jaden's going to handle this professionally. DQ's going to sit him down, say, look, this is what we did. This is why we did it. We did it for your own good. But obviously, we believe for you to be successful, these are things you're going to need to change and do better. And we need to get you a coach that's going to move you in that direction, right? But wet blanket's the best way to describe that presser. It was uninspiring to say the least. But
yeah,
at the end of the day, the actions are what's going to matter. And, we're looking for how they're going to work on building that roster. That's a big part. And I guess who they're going to end up hiring as coaches. So,
yeah.
like,
I mean,
who's your top couple of names? Anybody come to the forefront for you
oh man,
for these coordinator roles?
here's what I don't like about this coordinator situation is it's a tough I think it's a tough sell. I think it's a tougher sell than you think. And I think in some ways that could lead to us actually finding a really good coordinator because you're probably going to have to get somebody young that needs a shot at OC, at least. DC maybe is a little different. We're going to really test. Dan Quinn apparently has all these amazing relationships, loves these guys. AP's viewed very highly around the league. Let's see. Let's see who we get.
Yeah, I don't know
But
how
I
tough a
think
sell it's going to be.
well, here's the deal. You got Dan Quinn. I mean, if you start off anything less than 500 through the first 5 or 6 games, like you're looking at if you start off 1-5 next year, Quinn might get canned. Like you're not working with a situation that's particularly uh that's secure for an
Yeah,
offensive coordinator.
but I don't know. That's the vibe they're going to give off, right? I'm sure when
Generally,
they,
those jobs are year to year, anyways.
yeah,
But and I think the vibe will be, hey, if you come in and do your job, that'll make you look good, and we're not going to lose you, right? Like
right.
there's also that part of it. That being said, a guy that really intrigues me is Thomas Brown. He's a guy that intrigues me for the last OC vacancy. The word is he wasn't ready yet. He's a McVay guy. He's currently the pass game coordinator in New England. They're doing pretty good passing the football up there. That's a name that I really like. Davis Webb is over in Denver. He's an assistant over there. That's another name that I have a friend of mine that said they want him as a head coach. He hasn't even been a coordinator yet. That's a guy. If for whatever reason Kevin Stefanski doesn't get a head coaching job, that would be pretty high up on my list as well at OC. But that would be a guy that you've got him for a year and then he's going to go be a head coach. Um, Bobby Slowick is another name that intrigues me. Um, there's some options out there, man. There's some options out there. Another one, my number one seed, given that he's available, is Todd Monken, given what just happened in Baltimore. If Monken is available, I'd give him a blank check.
Interesting. I don't think I have much to add to that.
I mean, with what he's been able to do there, I mean, Henry ran for 1,900 yards last year. This past year that just ended was a tougher year, but a lot of people put that onus on Harbaugh for the getting away from the run game there. I don't know. I
The
mean, that's
word
a
is they
thing
want
that's
to. The word is they want to get rid of Monken. At least that's what I read. That was one of the points of contention with Harbaugh.
yeah. Well, then if that's,
Yeah.
I'd bring
Is
him in.
anybody
I
ever
think
really happy with an offensive coordinator? It just seems
it's
like
got to be
it's
one of the most thankless jobs in the NFL, right? Because it's like when a quarterback completes a pass to an open wide receiver, it looks so easy, and you go, why can't that happen
bring
every
Scotty
play?
back. Bring Scotty
Yeah.
Turner back. Come on.
Somebody said it's time to bring. There's a lot of funny photoshops online. They said because there was a tweet. Somebody tweeted that. I'll pull it up. Somebody tweeted that they thought the Commanders would get. They said they thought the Commanders would get a better coach at OC than one
I
of these
saw
teams
that.
gets with a vacancy at head coach. That's Jonathan Jones on Twitter. Not to be confused with our cornerback.
So I think his
Um,
opinion is that it is an attractive
an
spot.
attractive job, and
Yeah.
that somebody tweeted a picture of Jay Gruden, and they said bring him home. Um, but yeah, it's a interesting it's an interesting thing there. I think overall, it would be a good it would be a good move. But we'll see. We'll see. Not Jay Gruden, but I think getting any of those guys that I mentioned would be the move. But Monken's my number one.
Yeah.
That's my number one for sure. Um,
Sounds like he
but
might be available.
yeah, that would be sweet. I wanted to make him head coach, so that would be sweet. Um, let's get to it. What's going on with Harbaugh, man?
That's wild. I was pretty surprised. I mean, you think guys make it to Tuesday and it's done, but I don't know. Like I was talking to our insider about that quite a bit. He's not happy. I don't know that he represents the majority of the fan base. I
Certainly
don't
not
know,
in my
man.
group chats.
It's tough. 18 years. It did sort of feel like maybe it was time for a change, but he's also had a lot of success. The complaint is only 3 playoff wins in 7 years. I mean, I'd love to be in the playoff every year and, be disappointed that we didn't do well in the playoffs. But he's a good coach. It'd be interesting to see. His agent is already saying that he's getting calls from, sounds like almost all the teams that have openings, which might be a
Well,
bit of
the
an
word was
exaggeration.
he
But
got 7 phone calls regarding being a head coach, and there's only 6 openings
only other
other than
than
the
Baltimore.
Ravens. There's 7 total, including now
Yeah,
Baltimore,
so
which
I'm
just
sure it's a
what a
bit
crazy place to
hyperbole,
be. But
but yeah, I'm sure I'll get a look. Maybe it's a good chance for him to recharge if he wants to. But yeah, pretty surprising
yeah,
at the end of the day. I mean,
Atlanta would be a
one of seven openings, right? The Cardinals, Falcons, Ravens, Browns, Raiders, Giants, Titans, all
yeah.
open. So,
Yep.
so
I think
want to
I
pick
think
some playoff
another
games?
yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
You can make your last point if you were gonna.
I was just gonna
Fire one
say
off there.
the DC situation is interesting as well with Raheem Morris getting fired. I think he's probably
Yep.
your number one defensive coordinator candidate. Not that I'm particularly in favor of that, but I think that's what will happen. Dan Quinn made a big point about saying you got to get a guy that fits, which means I'm gonna hire a guy from my system. So be ready for that.
Well, and
Um,
I think that influences offensive coordinator situation too, because he always talks about complementary football, and when you run a high risk, high reward system, there's three and outs, and sometimes you're not able to sustain drives when you're not willing to run it, right?
yep.
So anyway,
Let's pick some games. Pick some games.
it's that time.
Um,
We're wiping the slate clean. We're both
yeah.
0-0 at this point.
Time for some good football. Saturday, 4:31 p.m. Is this do all these games start at 31 or 01 or is that a typo,
Yeah,
Bob?
it's kind of funny, but they
4:31 p.m. Rams are 10.5 point favorites at the Panthers, the 5 seed versus the 4 seed. Do you think the Rams beat the Panthers by more than 11 points, Bob?
that's a tough one.
On the road.
And the Panthers beat them once this year
Yep.
already. Um,
Rams a little Jekyll and Hyde-ish late in the season.
I'm gonna go Rams.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Rams as well. I want to go out sad with Carol, but I don't want to go out betting on Carolina. That's really what it comes down to. Packers are 1.5 point favorites at the Bears. That's the 7 seed Packers at the 2 seed Bears. By the way,
So is
craziness.
Love back
I
for
would
this
with a
game?
line like that, you'd have to
He's got to
assume.
be right.
Yeah, you'd have to assume he's good. I mean, Willis was lighting it up against the Ravens, but he's been
Yeah, no, he's played pretty well, but I think you
speaking of guys
definitely
that
want to
should
have Jordan
get a
Love back. I
shout.
mean, if you think of those two games, right? I mean, the Packers beat them once, and then they went to overtime in the second affair. Interesting
Yeah,
that they're favored here on the
it's a
road.
pick 'em.
It is a pick 'em. Ah, man. There's like part of me says Packers, but I know I'm not a big Bears fan, and I wonder how much of that influences. But then there's part of me that really believes the Bears are going to end up pulling this out. So reluctantly, I'm going to say the Bears.
Yeah, it's yeah, I'm gonna go with the I'm gonna go with the Packers. I'm being a hater. I got a tingle. Although no Parsons just stinks, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the Packers. I think they
I
get their
think
get back.
I think the
I think they
Bears
got
are.
it took a miracle for the Bears to win their last game against them.
Yes, yes. It's going to be a tight one. I
You
think that
regretting that
line's
pick?
about right. No,
The way you
I'm not.
said
I was
yes.
going to say is I think the Bears are a bit of a mirror image of us last year.
Yeah.
So I think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna make a Super Bowl run, but I think they might get one or two wins here
Get to the
in the
NFC
playoffs,
Championship game and lose 55 to
maybe, or at
23.
least win this first one. Yeah.
Bills 1.5 point favorites at Jaguars. That's Sunday at 1 p.m. Jags are Bills are the 6 seed. Jags are the 3 seed. What do you got?
So another one, tough one, right? Because this one you look at it and you think Bills, but the
Yeah,
Jaguars
sure.
have been pretty defiant. I mean, given the fact that the Bills are both of our Super Bowl picks, I'm not sure they still would be,
No.
but I'll go Bills on this one.
Yeah, I'll go Bills as well, but it's tight, man. It's
It
tight.
is.
I if it was a bigger number, I'd feel better about taking the Jags, honestly. Like if it
I
was
also
like even
think
if it
that
was
we
like minus
fall
three and a
into this.
half.
I think we fall into this situation with the Bills where Josh Allen is a great, great, great player. Take him out of the equation. How good of a football team is that?
Probably
They're
pretty
okay.
average.
They're
Yeah.
okay. They got some other good players. They got a really good running back, but they don't have a ton of weapons. I mean, defense is okay. I think we get caught up in the Josh Allen thing when it comes to the Bills, rightfully so, because he's a great player. But
Yeah.
anyway, but I'll stick with the Bills.
We got 49ers at Eagles Sunday at 4:31. Eagles 4.5 point favorites there. What do you like, Pop?
I'm going to go Eagles.
Give me the Niners. Give me the Niners all day. Niners getting 4.5 points. Phillies looked pretty subpar at the end of this season. Um,
These
I'm
are the moments that they step up in, though. You know, I
yeah.
they've got a great defense. I
Are
think that
they?
offense has a tendency to turn it on when they need to. Um,
Four and a half
I
is
don't
also a
know.
lot of points.
It is, and
Four and
I
a half
could
is
be
a
talked
lot
into
of
the
points.
Niners. I don't get me wrong. I could be talked into the Niners. I'm trying to pick with my head as much as possible, and just kind of a bit of what my gut is. You know, staying as neutral as I can.
Yeah.
Um, but that's a should be a good matchup.
Sunday night under the lights, Drake May getting 3.5 points, favored by 3.5 points at home against the Chargers. I
Yeah,
mean, I tell you, if this was any team other than Justin Herbert, I'd feel pretty good about taking a Pats upset here, but I gotta go Pats, man. I just don't trust Herbert in the playoffs. I hate to say it.
you had such a man crush on Herbert. I think you just loved his flowing hair. That's what it
I
was.
I told you I'm off the Justin Herbert, the way he played in the playoffs last year against Houston, eviscerated it completely eviscerated any level of excitement I had for him.
Yeah, I can understand that. Um, yeah, no, I'm going Pats as well. I don't trust the Chargers.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
gets.
you
I mean,
just can't.
and you got to give Pats the respect. You know, for sure. It's going to be a home playoff game. That crowd is going to be absolutely juiced
Yeah,
to see them back in that form. And you know, Drake May is playing great ball. Not to mention the rest of the team as well. So I'll go Pats there.
so that would have the Pats playing then the winner of this 5 versus 4 game, the way we've got, or no, that would have the Pats playing the Bills next round, which would be
That's
fun.
a
I'd
game.
also like to see
That would
that.
be a lot of fun.
I'd
Yeah.
also like to see that. Um, Texans -3 at the Steelers. Texans are on the road here, getting 3 points. That's pretty wild. What do you like, Pop?
I'm tempted to take Pittsburgh, but I just keep going back to that Texans defense. And I
Yeah,
just think that that's going to be a problem for, I do think Aaron Rodgers is playing a lot better. I think this Pittsburgh team might be a little bit better than they get credit for overall. Having said that, they were one pushed field goal away from not being in this position. I mean, it was that close, and their defense couldn't stop the Ravens near the end there. So I'm going Texans
yeah.
here. I think they're the
I'm
better
uh,
team overall.
I'm going Texans as well. I think their defense is lethal. I think CJ Stroud is underrated still. And yeah, I think they'll do it for sure. I
Yeah,
just
they just
don't.
seem like a well coached, really good football team.
It's hard to you believe you're betting against Aaron Rodgers getting 3 points at home in the playoffs. I mean, I can. He's 80 years
So,
old,
yeah, I was gonna
but
say it's not Aaron Rodgers from 15 years ago.
certainly,
Um,
it's just a crazy sentence to
all
say.
right, so that's it. All 6 games picked. The only ones we got different are you picked 49ers, I picked Eagles, you picked Packers, I picked Bears.
It's going
See
to
how
come
it
down to the
goes.
NFC,
See
but
how we roll here. But it was a lot of fun.
for sure,
Make sure you
let's.
timestamp this thing since we spent 35 minutes on our in our
Yeah,
Manders.
this is got a lot of good stuff going on here. But what do you say we wrap this thing up, Pop?
Let's do it.
Without further ado, I've been Dom.
This is Pop.
Thank you for another great week, and hail to the Commanders.
Hail.